Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Supplementary Videos. My name is Kasanas. Guys, in this video we're going to continue on with our exploration of UI by looking at some of the most commonly used UI elements. All right, let's get started. Okay, guys, I have got myself a brand new scene here, and what I've done is I've put a couple of the most commonly used UI assets into this scene. I'm going to hit play here just so we can see what they are and how they're operating. And we'll go over each one of these just really simply. I've got an image at the top. I've got a text here. I've got a button. I've got a slider. I have a scroll bar. I have a toggle. And I have this drop down option box. Okay, I'm going to stop this. And in today's video, what I really want to do is just look at how these things are actually created and what goes into them. We're not going to look at coding them or making them work in this particular video. We're just going to discuss each one of these and what they might be used for. Okay, let's start off right away with the image. The image is relatively simplistic. We can see that within the hierarchy here, there's only one hierarchical level. There's no children, anything like that associated with it. It's just the one layer of this asset. We took a look at it previously in the last video. We kind of just put it in place and moved it around, but we're going to take a look at the actual components that make up the image right now. So first of all of them are going to have a rect transform, so we're not going to discuss that any further. But if we scroll down here, we can kind of see there's a canvas renderer, so the fact that it's being rendered on the canvas, and we have this component called the image component. The image component has a number of different things associated with it: source image, color, material, raycast target, raycast padding, maskable, etc. So many of these things here are common amongst all of the options that we have. Let's take a look at the ones that are unique to the actual image. So the source image itself currently is set up as Nighthead. It's just this night here. You can drag anything you want in there. So if I wanted to swap this out and instead I want to make it into this triangle, I absolutely could just by going through and clicking on this little thing on the side here, this little kind of target, and choosing the asset that I want. It's going to automatically put that sprite in place, and it's going to automatically update your image. Below that is the color. This allows us to tint our image however we'd like. We can adjust it however we'd like it, just like that. Obviously, white is going to be the full color image, but we can add a tint to this object in whatever color we decide. All right, really simply. And now all of these things are also adjustable within code as well. Below that is the material. We can associate with this image a particular type of material. We have not discussed materials in any way yet. We'll discuss materials in a little later date. Okay, something else that's pretty important down here. Obviously, we talked about raycast targeting before and allowing it to block raycast, etc. Down here, we have something called the image type. The image type currently is set up to simple, and that just means show the image on the screen, but we have a number of different options as far as the image is concerned. We have the simple, we have the sliced, we have the tiled, and we have the filled, excuse me. The sliced itself allows us to chop up this image and be able to manipulate it in a specific way so that as we stretch it and move it about, it's going to be adjustable. Below that, we have the tiled, which means it'll repeat over and over again based on the size of this sprite that's associated with it. And the last one is filled, and this is kind of a cool one. You can see here when we put in filled, it allows us to have several other options associated with it. So we have the fill method, the fill origin, the fill amount, and whether or not we're going clockwise and preserve aspect. What this allows us to do is adjust how much of this image we're seeing. So right now you can see the fill amount is equal to 1, but if I drag this slider down and you take a look at what's happening on the screen here, we can adjust exactly how much of that image we're seeing. And again, this is something that we can activate through code. So we could use this to slowly show an image. Let's say we were using it for a health bar or something like that, and you want to allow your character to take damage. We could change the type, the fill method to, let's say, horizontal. And as our character takes damage, we take off chunks. Oh, I meant vertical. I did not mean horizontal. I mean, you could do it horizontal too. It doesn't matter. But vertically, boom, I take chunks of damage. And as I go down, 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 I'm dead. Right? You could do something like this. And maybe we'll take a look later on at something like this when we take a look at the coding. Maybe we'll talk about building a really simple health bar. All right. And again, the direction of fill, whether it's from the bottom or from the top. So as I go like this, I start at 0, it's going to fill from the top and fill up. If I have this at the bottom like this, then as I start at 0 and I fill up, it's going to fill from the bottom up. Okay, that is basically the way that an image works. And I think it's really important that we start with image because both image and the next one we're going to take a look at text are used for a lot of different things. The next asset I want to take a look at is the text asset. And you'll see that it says in here, I just left this with the standard names. And again, we found all these under game object, UI, and I've chosen a bunch of these. We've skipped some. I've skipped raw image, for example. I'm skipping input field. I'm skipping scroll view. I'm skipping all these legacy items. So we're just doing a few of them, kind of the most common ones, because otherwise this videos can be way too long. So you can just add them. Any of these you can just add to your scene by going into the menu under game object, go to UI, and finding the appropriate asset you're looking for. Anyway, text. You'll note that it says text TMP. I've left all of these with their default names. This says text TMP, and TMP stands for Text Mesh Pro. And it is an advanced version of text. So previously, in older versions of Unity, we just had text, and text had some limited options. You could change the text around and use it for labeling and that kind of thing. Uh, Text Mesh Text Mesh Pro, it's hard to say. Text Mesh Pro has a lot more options. If you are interested in the old version of text, you can come into the UI elements and you can find the old version down here under Legacy. There's an old text, old button, old drop down, and old input field. So all of these things have kind of changed. And really what's changed within them is the fact that instead of just being the old text, all of those options utilize Text Mesh Pro now. Okay, so let's take a look at what's involved in the text on the asset. So right at the top here, if we take a look at the Text Mesh Pro, we can see that we have a text field where I've written hello world. You can write anything that you want in here. Again, all of these things are updatable through code, etc. So you can write anything you want in here. These text options are used for things like labels or anything at all that you want to kind of give text information to your player. Below that is a text style. Again, there's a whole bunch of different styles you can use, just like you're formatting something within a Word document or something like that. You have a bunch of different styles that you can utilize as far as how this text actually looks. Below this is our main settings, and we can see we have a bunch. We have font assets, material presets, font style, font size, auto sizing, vertex color, so much stuff here. If we scroll down, we take a look, we got so much stuff in here that we can actually manipulate to make this look exactly the way we want it to look. It's really important to understand that by default, the font asset is this Liberation Sans SDF. You can download any font you like, as long as it's been converted, and it'll go through and convert it to a Text Mesh Pro once you bring it in asset, and you can put any kind of font you like in here, and that way you can obviously customize the way your game looks. Something that's really important to note that the moment you add any kind of Text Mesh Pro asset, you're going to have a pop-up for the first time that you try and add this asset to your scene. There's going to be a pop-up that comes up and it says we have to download information for Text Mesh Pro. You can say yes, go ahead. You'll have the option to download examples in that as well if you're interested in that. But yeah, all that stuff has to be downloaded first before you can actually use this asset. Afterwards, you have a bunch of different options within here. We're not going to go into all of them, obviously. You can change the font style. So if you want a bold or italics, you can change the font size, how big it is. You can change the vertex colors, so it'll change how this actually, the color of it itself. The gradients can be added. Spacing, so you can change how much space between all the different characters, how much space between lines, etc. Alignments are here, so if you want it justified left or centered or right or whatever you want, it's all here. Wrapping mode, so if this goes too far, so if it's going to overrun the size of your text box, and again, the size of your text box is going to be created right up in here, where you make the height and the width. If you overrun the size of your text box, what do you want to happen? Do you want it to just continue and ignore the fact that you overrun it? Do you want it to did you want it to stop, like truncate it? It's going to be up to you. And again, there's a bunch of different mapping and that kind of stuff in here as well. Below this, you can see that we have information about the actual font as well. So all of this kind of stuff is located within here. A particular field a particular font we're using, all that information is right in here. This is for the material, which you can see right here. This material preset. All of that information is located right inside of this text box down here. And again, like I've already said, your text box will be used for things like labels within your UI. It'll be used for, you can adjust it through code, so you can change those labels automatically if you want information to be given to your player differently. You could use it for dialogue systems, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, the next asset we're going to talk about is the button asset. The button is kind of the first of our more complex assets. It's kind of the first one that is obviously for input. Your player can use a button, or you can use a button to allow your player to interact with your UI. The button can be used for anything you want, enter into the game, quit the game, whatever you want to use a button for. If we take a look at the button itself, it is made up of two hierarchical levels. There is the button, and there is the Text Mesh Pro as as a child to the button itself. This Text Mesh Pro and this one are identical in every way. So anything you could have done with the one we initially looked at, you can actually do with this one as well. So it just allows you to customize your button however you'd like. Now, if we take a look at the button itself, there'll be a couple of things that we see here as well. The button, again, rect transform like everything else, it actually has an image component as well, which is exactly the same as this image. This image here is just an image component. It's just an asset with the image component. Well, this button has the image component as well. So not only can you adjust the text with Text Mesh Pro for your button, but you can set this up so that it is being driven by an image as well. Just adding an image here will change how this button looks. It can be anything you want in exactly the same way as the initial image we looked at. If I wanted to change my source image, so instead it was that night one more time, then boom, there we go. I've changed it so it's the night. All right, if we want it to go back to what it was originally here, or choose something else, like let's say this rounded button, however we want to design it, we can. Okay, so I'll just leave it as that round rect for now. Color, same thing. It works exactly the same as the image we looked at previously. The only difference there's actually no difference between this. What we do have is this additional component for the button itself. Now, this is driving the function of the button. So we have a number of different options. We can make this button interactable or not interactable, so you can turn it on or off. We have a number of different transitions that are available to us. You can see we have none, color tint, sprite swap, and animation. Each of these will allow something different to happen when we interact with this button. That's what it's for. So whenever we're going from one state to the next, something different will happen. If I leave it here in color tint, and kind of understand that the sprite swap and animation work similarly, just with swapping out sprites or allowing for an animated sequence to play, we'll take a look at this color tint as the option. So did I close it? Yes, I did. Leaving this color tint in place, we can see that we have the normal, so what it is normally a white color. Highlighted is this kind of color. Pressed, it's going to turn like this. Selected, it's going to turn like this. So each one of these is going to show how this button looks whenever it is something's happening to it. So if you've selected that particular button, for example, you want it to change a different color, you absolutely can. Let's go ahead and change this pressed color just so you can see, because right now if I hit play, you'll be able to see it. If I hit play here and I click on this button, you can kind of see that it turns gray a little bit here, but let me make this more obvious in case you are utilizing a screen that doesn't allow you to see this very well. I'm going to change this pressed color to, let's make it some kind of crazy green. All right, so there we go. I'm going to make it, actually I'll make it like go for it green. All right, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to hit play now. I've changed the press color, and watch what happens now. When I press, boom, it becomes really obvious that I've pressed this button. All right, so as I press and I hold, as long as I'm holding that click, the button has remained green. I'm not suggesting that you change your button colors like I've done here. Again, how you go ahead and create this interactive options within your game is really important. Understanding UX and what your players are getting from it is extremely important. Understanding the information that your players have are super important. So lots of times when people are first designing their UI, they'll set this up so that they have, let's say, white and green, like I have here, right? White and green. If I had a number of different buttons, some of them are white and some of them are green, or I chose like a darker color, let's say instead of let's say for the selected, let's say for selected, instead of being white like this, I chose a darker color. So let me just choose a darker color like this. Some people do this, and it's really kind of confusing. So right now, if I hit play and I click on the button, It's green, I let go, and it's now kind of dark gray. Now this to me looks like, oh, you have set this up so it's no longer available, right? You have to be really careful about the choices you make as far as the states of your button, right? This being gray like this, people might assume that that is no longer something that's available, that it's not actually selected. And oftentimes choosing the wrong color within your menu can really kind of drive people away from understanding how your menu is working. Okay, the next thing we're going to take a look at is the slider. The slider asset is more complex in nature again. So if I open this up, we can see that we have a number of different child assets that are associated with the slider itself. We have the background, the fill area, which has its own, and the handle slide area, which has its own as well. So let's take a look at some of these things. First of all, the slider itself is where all of the interaction takes place. Just like the button, we have a number of different things that we can set up here. How we go through a transition from one state to the next is as here, just exactly the same way as it was with the button. And we have a number of different options, just like we did with the button. Okay, down below that, we have links to these different child assets. So the fill rect is located with the fill. So right here, the handle rect is located with the handle down here. Each of these things have to be set up properly. Again, we have a number of other choices as well. So whether or not we have a minimum maximum value, these can be set up any way you want. So I can have a value of, let's say, 10, -10. It doesn't really matter what you choose as far as these values are concerned. Any values can be placed within the slider itself. It's all set up in this top layer. Below that is whether or not we want to use whole numbers only. So if we want our player to only be able to click through whole numbers, we would turn this on. This means we can only go from -10 to -9 to -8 and so on and so on and so on. Otherwise, I can have decimal. I can have any kind of floating type number I want in here. So let's say I leave on our whole numbers. Below that is value. And again, we're going to see this in a number of different locations. Value is where the actual slider is set. So right now it's set between -10 and 10 at a value of 0. If I go down, you can see that it is moving downwards. And if I go up, it'll go up to the value of 10 or all the way down to the value of -9. And you can see it adjusting down here. Let me just put this back to 0 for now. And then we'll adjust our starting value to 0. Okay, let me hit play and show you how this is working. Again, just like the button, if we wanted to be able to click on this and show something different, we can. By clicking on the handle here, I can drag it about. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to see, so let's stop this. And let's take a look at some of these things that are underneath. Below that, we have the background, and the background itself is just, again, an image. You can set it up however you want. It's the same as the image we talked about previously. You can place this wherever you want. The fill area is the area that is in front of the asset. So again, it's stretched it across the entirety of it, and the fill area here is showing the what's like the actual value. Let me change a couple of these just so we can see it. I'm going to change the fill color to a green like this. I'm going to change the background because, again, just like the other image, we can go through and change its color. I'm going to change the background to a red. All right, we can see it updating right over here. And I'm going to hit play. Now, this should be more evident as I utilize this scroll. As I pull this, you can see that the fill is turning green, and I've got this red here, so I'm kind of like filling up that area as I drag this handle back and forth. All right, let's turn this off and let's explore the handle itself. So the handle itself, again, is just where we're placing something. And the important part is this image down here. It's basically just an image, just like this one up here, just exactly the same. You can put anything you want in here. So let's say we wanted to change it. Instead of it being a knob, let's put it as this guy's head. All right, we'll use this guy's head everywhere. So again, now when I hit play, you'll see that my slider has that little head. Let's say this could be a health bar. I mean, this is a kind of a not the best health bar, but it could be your health bar, right? You could say, okay, my guy's not damaged, and then boom, he starts taking damage, and we can see his health bar going down, 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 down. All right, something like that is also something that we could do. All right, and the handle, the fill, they're just simply images. We are adjusting those images the way we want to. The fill area itself and the handle slide area is just allowing us to place this in the proper location according to our slider. The background is the one we're seeing in the background, and the slider itself is where all of the information is happening as far as the operation of this object. What I didn't mention in the button, and I'll mention it for the slider, the button has something different. each of our assets we're going to take a look at that are interactable have these by default have these events that can occur. With the slider, the default event is on value change. So as I adjust this handle through the different values here, as I adjust this value right here, something can occur. I can put an event inside here. We're going to talk about that in the next video when we talk about coding and utilizing these UI elements. So as I adjust these values right here, this event will be fired, and whatever I place within here is going to happen every time I adjust this thing. So if let's say this is my health bar, every time the health of the player went down from a value of 10, they have 10 hit points. Every time they take a point of damage, we might call something here and have a screen flash or whatever it is we want to do. The button, if I go back to button, has an on click event automatically by default. So every time you click on the button itself, something is going to happen. So having it highlight or having it become the selected object doesn't by default cast out an event, but the on click does. So whenever you click this button, something is going to happen. And like I said, we'll talk about that in the next video. All of your interactable objects are going to have those kind of options. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is the scroll bar. The scroll bar is very, very similar to the slider. Again, if I drag this down, we can see we have our sliding area, and again, we have this handle. So it's not quite as complex as the slider itself. Let's take a look, however, when I actually hit play. So just like the slider, I have the ability to grab this handle and scroll it along back and forth. You're probably saying, well, why would I use one over the other? They're slightly different. If we go back and we take a look at how the scroll bar works, again, we have the same thing with an image associated with it. We can do anything we want with our image. We have our transitions that are available as we move this around. And down here, we have our ability to navigate the handle. We have value here between 0 and the maximum value we can have in here is 1. So if I try and put a value of 10 in here and I hit return, you see it automatically goes back to a value of 1. So this is a floating point number. It is a value between 0 and 1. The step size we'll move through is 0.2. So as we go through, instead of it being like some little fraction like this, it's going to automatically move 0.2 at a time along this. The number of steps that are available, we can change this value as well. So the number of steps change, how many steps there are along here. It's going to change. It's going to change exactly how far we move up each and every time. The on value change, the same as we had with the slider, is the default event that occurs. So really and truly kind of the only thing that's really different. Again, within our sliding area, this is how we put our handle in place. Right here is how we actually create the image for the handle itself. And this image up here is how this slider looks. There's no background and foreground. So unlike the slider, we do not have these two different colors or these two different options in here. What we have is this kind of background area for the scroll bar, and the button itself moves along that location. So again, if we just take a look here, I can move it along this location. If I go into the actual scroll bar itself and I change this background color, let's change it to, so we can see it, let's change it to maybe a purple so we can see that it's different. I'll make it a bright purple, and I hit play. As I move that handle along, there is nothing kind of left behind. It's just the same color in all locations. You might use this as a volume slider. You can use it for anything you want, really. Again, it's just going to give you a value between 0 and 1 based on those steps and the incremental size that you're changing this value at. So yeah, some people might use this for things like a slider, or maybe you use it for your gamma settings if you're adjusting light brightness or whatever it is you want to do. It's totally up to you. You could use a scroll bar for that same thing. All right, let's take a quick look at the toggle. The toggle is a on or off kind of situation. It's basically a radio button. It's either on or off. True or false is basically how the toggles themselves work. If we take a look again, we have a number of different things. We have this background, and they're using this thing called a label here. The label itself is just basically the old version of Text Mesh Pro. So it's basically just text that you can show on the screen. It is, if we go back up here and we take a look, I think it's still available under the legacy items. No, it's not even there anymore. So the label is basically just text that you can put on the screen. And that's all it's really for. So you're labeling this section right here where it says toggle. It might say, hard mode or whatever it is it's going to say here. You're just going to change this text accordingly, and it's going to change the value right here that we're seeing. seeing. Background itself has a number of different things, what you want to use as far as the image is concerned, as far as this little checkbox is concerned. If I hit play, and I toggle this on and off, you can see it either has a check mark or no check mark. You can change exactly what this check mark is. You can see it's just an image. You can change to anything you want. You could put this little guy's head in there again, so it turned on the little guy's head on and off. That's basically what it's doing. Okay, the toggle itself is really interesting. Again, we have the ability to transition depending on what we're doing with it. And we can also set this up so that it is part of a group, meaning that if we have a toggle group in place, we have multiple toggles, then only one of those toggle fields is going to be available to us at any given time. So if you toggle one on, the other one is going to toggle off. If you don't want to do that and you do not set it up as a toggle group, any of your toggles will be independent and you can set them on or off. But if it is part of a toggle group, then only one of those values are going to be on or off at any given time. So if you wanted to use this, to set up a hard mode, easy mode, or whatever, you could do so. So you wouldn't want to have both hard mode and easy mode on, but if you toggled hard mode on, then easy mode would automatically turn off. If, however, you were setting up a game where the player could choose, I don't know, different things that either make the game harder. Instead of just having a hard mode or easy mode, you want to set up different things like enemies times 2 strength, your health divided by 2, or whatever. You have these different things to make the game harder, kind of adjustable game settings. You could do it without a toggle group and just say, okay, well, if I turn on, enemies 2 times harder, but I don't turn on the other one, then I only have the one. And if I turn on both, then I have both those things making my game harder. Again, we can see that the standard or default event that is available to us is this value changed. Okay, that is the toggle. Let's take a look at the last one we're going to take a look at today, which is the drop down. The drop down is one of those drop down menus that you see everywhere, right? We're seeing them right up here. If I go here to help, there's my drop down menu. Well, it's exactly the same as that. So if I hit play here so we can see how it's operating, we will see that we have currently option A selected. If I click on this little arrow, or anywhere within here actually, if I click on this area here, we'll see that the options we have available pop up. I can choose a different option. Let's say I choose option C. Boom, as I choose it, everything kind of scrolls back to where it was, and option C has now been selected within our dropdown. Let's stop this. And let's take a look at this actual asset. All right, so the drop down, the top of it, the parent of the rest of it, because there's a lot under here. If I open this up with a little arrow, you can see I have label, arrow, I have template. The template has a viewport, it has content, it has an item. So this is a fairly complex asset. We've got a scroll bar down here. Let's just start at the top with the parent, this drop down. Let's just put it within the scene. Everything here is the same as we saw before. We have an image just like we did previously. What does this actually look like? So you can adjust the image there. Again, we have all of our options as far as the drop down is concerned, as far as interacting with it. How does it interact, or how does it change? How does it transition as we choose our different options? We have that down there. We have the different items and how they're going to be set up. So each of these things in the Text Mesh Pro and the text itself, how is that kind of stuff all set up? Below that, we have this array of options. We saw option A, option B, and option C. When we ran our program, we saw those different options pop up in the dropdown. Yeah, and then down at the very bottom here, we can see that our default event is the value change. So after we've selected a new value, boom, the new one comes in place, and we're going to launch whatever is located in this location. Obviously, we can have much more events than this, and we'll talk about that, like I said, later on. Below that, we have labels and how this thing's actually labeled, all the text that's set up with it. Below our label, we have the arrow. It's that little tiny image that we see inside of this drop down right here. It's a little arrow you click on to make the drop down. Below that, we have template, and we have the scroll bar. So let's just talk about the scroll bar first of all. The scroll bar is there in case the number of options you have overruns your template. So if your template is a specific size and you have more options. So if I click on help here, I click on window here, you can see how each of these things here are different sizes. In the case of our drop down here, if we overrun the size that we have currently set up, instead of expanding like it does here, it's currently set up so that a scroll bar will kick in and allow us to scroll through the options. This scroll bar is in every way identical to the scroll bar we looked at previously. It's identical in every single way. So we'll kind of close that up. This template defines the area where all of your options are located. It's got an area where the options themselves are located. It's going to have the actual like size along here is where the actual options are going to be, and this space next to it. This is my template. This is the size of the template. This is my viewport. This is where the options will be located, and then the scroll bar is going to appear right along here if we overrun the size of our viewport. The content in itself is described basically by each individual item that we're putting within there. And again, we can change how every single item changes, right? How the items themselves change. We've got ourselves individual items here. Individual items will, the background for it, etc., is all located here. So the power of this particular these assets, what we took a look at here, it was all default stuff. Obviously, if you're creating your UI, you're going to make it for your particular game or your particular application. You're going to adjust it to whatever narrative type you have. If you've made a sci-fi game, like a narrative genre, you're going to adjust it for your sci-fi game or your fantasy game. All these things can be made to look exactly like you want. You want your UI to match with the world that you're creating for your players. So most of these options in here have a lot to do with the ability to adjust how everything looks to make sure it's operating and looks the way you want it to look. All right. All the difficult stuff that, what's happening in the background is all going to be handled by the event system that we've got here, which we're going to talk about in our next video. Let me close this up. So guys, that's what I wanted to go over for this particular video. I didn't go over all of the options. There's a lot more things that you might want to consider. Again, how you're setting up your UI, how you're building it. In the first video, we talked about UI and creating panels and creating different sections and anchoring them to where you want them to be anchored within your scene. All of that kind of stuff you're going to get from the last video. All we did today is kind of look over some of the really the more used assets that are typically associated with your UI. Obviously, these aren't the only ones. I showed you there's a bunch more too, but these ones here are really, really common. And I think that my students will be kind of looking at these as their most common UI elements for now. Obviously, they can make it more complex as they move forward. But yeah, that's it. That's what I want to show you guys today, all of these different assets. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down below in the comments. I love to hear what you have to say. I spoke really fast this time, and I know it. I don't do great on caffeine, and I had I had a ton of caffeine before making this particular video. So if I spoke too fast, I do apologize to all of you. All right, guys. So anyway, thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.